All right. Welcome, everybody. This is a new episode of Jesus Talks. Now, as you guys can see, this is a completely different setup for those who have been watching me for a while. I have a special guest with me today, and I'm actually showing my face for once. So, today, why don't we let our special guest introduce himself first before we get
Yeah,
into it?
I'm Connor McLaughlin. I'm an online Catholic creator, influencer sort of a person. I work as the founder of Torchbearer Ministries, one of the fastest growing youth ministry tools in the world. And I also make content online about faith, evangelization, spirituality, basically helping people to become saints. That's what I'm obsessed with. And so it's probably what we're going to end up talking about here today.
Yes. And so, Connor, why don't you give us a little bit of background, a little bit more background for those who don't know you? So, how did you come into the faith? How did
Yeah.
you
So,
find the Lord? Kind
yeah,
of
I've
just.
been Catholic my whole life. I love Jesus. Big fan. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. But I've always been a little bit weird with my faith. I've always felt like there's something more into what we're doing. Obviously, the Catholic Church is the fullness of the faith. But it's really the question of how do we engage with that? How do we connect with that? How do we take it on as our own? And so that's really what for the last probably decade, the thing that's been just sitting in the back of my mind is like, how do I be who I'm meant to be even further than just what God wants me to be, right? How do I recognize what God wants me to be? And then how do I claim that identity and get rid of all of the other ridiculousness that's just getting in my way? Um, so yeah, I've always been Catholic, but it's, people say they're Catholic, but how Catholic really are you? Even if you know all the facts about the faith, or even if you're connected real close with God, how Catholic are you truly? How Christian are you? And so that's kind of what my story is. I've always been Catholic, but I've only recently tried to been diving more and more into figuring out what does it mean to truly be Catholic, truly be a Christian, truly follow Christ.
I feel like we have a similar story in that aspect because that's how I start off my faith. Raised Catholic my entire life, but I've never really started to develop a relationship with the Lord up until I was in middle school. So, and that was when I had my very first encounter with Him through prayer, and it was really beautiful. But again, I was one of those Catholics that, unfortunately, it's very common where you can see that people are like, "Oh yeah, I'm Catholic," but it's only because they go to mass every day or every Sunday. Only go, and that was my family. Like, guiltily, we were like that. So, and I really think that now the Lord has been really testing me and really been trying to teach me, like, this is what your faith actually means. This is the
Mm,
foundation. Let me destroy that foundation that you had, that perception you had of me, and
hmm
let's start over. Like, hey, I'm God. How you doing? You know? And so it was kind of that situation for me. So I think that for today's episode, I really wanted to talk to you about um, how can we enjoy ourselves in our singleness? And we can also get into relationships, into marriage. Like, what can we look for in a partner? Like, what is the correct way to look for a partner? Because in society today, I feel like we have such a different perception of it. And I know for me growing up, like singleness, it was not a good thing. Like I was told that like being single was not good. There's something wrong with you if you don't have a partner, and you need to change this, this, and this, and this about you. So, like, to start off, so what do you notice now, like in your marriage? Like, how did you, because I know you're married to a beautiful wife, by the way, and I've
She's
seen
great. Love
pictures of
her.
your guys' wedding. And so, like, how did you meet her? Kind of get into the background of what were kind of some struggles that you went through along your journey to
Yeah.
coming across her.
Honestly, we overcomplicate the crap out of dating. And we almost feel like, oh, I forget somebody posted this and it hit me in the face. I was like, oh, that's so well said. That just because you are a holy person, that does not uh, mean that you deserve or that you are entitled to. That was the terminology. Just because you're a holy person doesn't mean you're entitled to a holy person, right? Just because you are living your faith in the way that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm great. Oh, I must be doing something wrong because if I wasn't, then God would have given me a spouse already. And we like you were saying, we need to remove that foundation, right? The terminology I like to use is that we need to get rid of all the sand that we've put over the real firm foundation, right? As scripture says, we've built our foundation on sand or rock, right? On something that's solid or something that's not. Most of the time we just need to sweep away the sand and the rock's there. The foundation is there. We are made in the image and likeness of God. We've been baptized. We have an indelible mark on our soul. We are going to follow God's will. We just got to get rid of all the stuff that we've put on top of that have made it look different. So that's the first thing. Like, we need to stop pretending with this whole concept of like season of singleness. We almost don't even want to use the term. We need to stop focusing on like, oh, well, it's because we're putting on ourselves an identity of, oh, who I am is someone who is single now. But we're putting on identity of something we hate, and that's never going to develop us as something that we, you're nodding because it's so true, because it's like, oh, I don't like being single, but the only way that I can embrace it is if I say, no, it's fine because this is just a part of who I am now. But if you're putting on a something that as a part of who you are to the core of your being that you hate, like, what's that going to do for you? It's going to make you hate yourself. It's going to make you think that something's wrong with you because you're putting this false identity onto you. So we need to sweep away and get rid of all that sand, all that nonsense, right? All that it comes that we can put terminology over it, we can put ideas about it. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's a question of, if we are living our life, why has God taken so long? Because that's really what the real problem is we try to disguise the whole idea that we are just uncomfortable with God taking a while. And it's okay for us to say, no, I want God to give me someone now. I want to have this experience, right? I felt that way for forever. My wife was my first girlfriend. It was awesome, right? But there have been a lot of other people who I was like, I like you. And they were like, that's nice. Moving on, right? Like, I'm not a Don Juan sort of a dude who's going to have, people fawning over him all the time. I'm not. I'm balding at 27, right? I'm not this super attractive, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that God's going to take his time. And that was something that took me forever to realize, is that God's going to take his time. It's going to be in his time, right? I saw, oh my gosh, I forget who it was, at one of the Focus Seat conferences years and years and years ago. It was like a 2x2 grid. And it was like, either you're both ready, or you're ready but it's not the right time, or they're ready but it's the right it's you're both ready but it's not the right time. It's not the right time but you're both ready, or you're not ready and it's not the right time. It's like, of those four situations, there's only one that works, and that's when you're both ready. And there's that whole poem, Be Satisfied with Me. Have you read this one? Fun.
I've heard of it.
Yes. Okay. You need to read it because it really hits. One of the lines is, "Until I am." It's God like speaking to the person reading it, really, and it's really beautiful. And I read it a bunch when I was struggling with my own personal like singlehood trauma issues. But one of the lines in it is, "Until you are ready, and until the person I have for you is ready, I am working to have both of you ready at the same time and ready for each other." But we also need to not be like, oh, God, you have this person perfect person ready for me. I trust me. It's fine now. You're not the person who is ready for marriage if God hasn't given it to you yet. Or you don't believe that you're the person who is ready for marriage if God hasn't given you a person yet, right? But also, even with that terminology, we're like, yeah, that makes sense. But we're still wrong because we're thinking God will give me a person. God's not going to, there's soulmates? No. God doesn't have one person who's completely ready for you. He knows the person who you will be with, right? If he's calling you to the married life. But we need to not think, oh, well, there's one person that God's going to be ready for me, and that's going to be good, and then I'm all good. I mean, God, just give me that person now. You will find that person, you will go through the process, and they will probably be nothing like what you think or nothing like what think you want, but it will be what you need, because God, through the sacramental grace that he will give you through marriage, will give you the graces that you need to live a holy marriage with that person. And so, all this to say, we need to stop thinking about it like, oh, God's going to give me this. I need to wait for this. This is just my season. None of that. We just work as hard as we can to be the best person that we can possibly be, so that when God's ready, we're ready. Fair enough?
Now,
Does that
would
feel
you say
better?
that? Yeah, okay. So, like, would you say that maybe for those who are single and they don't have the desire to be married, not because of any past trauma or anything like that, um, what does the Catholic Church teach about that? Like, just people who don't have any desire to be married whatsoever. Like, is that wrong? Are we required to be married in the church? Like, what's the
No, no, no.
whole?
I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with not wanting to be married. Like, a lot of my friends, let me rephrase that. I have quite a few friends who have said, I really didn't want to get married until I met this person, and now I want to be married. Or I didn't picture myself as this kind of a husband or this kind of a wife, and then I got married, and now I feel like I want to do this, right? Like, we see this on TikTok all the time of these people being like, I was a feminist, and then I met this really nice guy, and I don't really, I just want to sit at home and bake bread, right? Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with being like, I want to work hardcore, right? And have my husband as a business partner to like go ham on whatever it might be. It's fine to have any aesthetic desires like that, or to say, I want nothing. I'm alone, I'm happy alone, right? The the only thing when things become an issue is when you're saying I'm going to deny whatever God's plan is in favor of my own. That's the only time it becomes a problem. And so if you're saying I want to be I feel called to marriage but I don't want to, so I'm just going to ignore it, is the same as saying I feel called to the priesthood, but I want to get married, so I'm going to ignore it. Or vice versa. I feel I want to become a priest, but I feel called to get married, so I'm just going to ignore so that do what I want to do. Right? That's the only time we have a problem with it. There's also this third stage, which is perpetual singleness, like being a consecrated a single person. The problem is a lot of people will end up saying, "No, I'm just going to be single for the church. That's cool." And it's like, okay, it's fine to give yourself to the church, but if you really want to go all ham, every diocese has specific procedures that you do. Like you make vows of singleness, perpetual singleness. It's not just I'm going to be single for now, and then the second God throws a cute boy in your life, you're like, "Never mind, God, I'm cool." Like it is a vow that you make, just like marriage or the priesthood. So that's kind of the overall church's teaching on all of that.
Yeah, because I know there's like I know that in history, especially in the Catholic Church, I know that we have people that have lived a single life, a single holy life. And one of the biggest examples that I could think of is Jesus. We didn't really see
Mm-hmm.
Jesus get married at all, but yet he was working in God's ministry. And so, and I think a lot of people now, or at least from what I see, especially in the youth, I see that a lot, where a lot of them are just like, oh no, it's because I want my partner, I want them now, I want this, I want that. And the problem is with, especially with society, it's like they're throwing different things at them. It's like, this is how your partner needs to be like. This is exactly what you need to. You need a cute boy. You need someone who this and that. Like it's either that or it's either it's like they can't make up their mind because it's like you need to have a partner or something's wrong with you, or it's like, hey, singleness, empowerment they call it, and they like screw guys and screw females and all this different stuff. And it's just like no, like I have a younger sister that she comes to me sometimes for different things, and one of the things I told her was, you're like the perfect person that God is going to have for you is going to be somebody who loves the Lord more than anything. Like the moment that that person puts the Lord first in everything, they'll know how to love you by that. And that's something that I've had to learn because I mean, in past relationships, I started to learn that like why haven't my relationships in the past been successful? I know I'm being called to marriage, but the thing is, the Lord's been teaching me, like, hey, we still got to work on a lot of different things. You are not ready yet. I can see you're excited, but you need to kind of like sit back, take the time, get to know me first.
Mm.
And so now my prayer, which is what I recommend a lot of people to do, is just say, don't let anybody even look at me or come near me if they're not meant to be in my life. Like, let
Mm.
them go through you
That's a
first
dangerous
before
prayer. That's a
it
really
is.
dangerous prayer.
And listen, man, have I been avoided. I will say I have been avoided, and I'm just like, oh, this guy's kind of cute, but it's also like the Lord's like, nope, you told me you want the person, to not look at you unless they're your actual spouse.
Yeah.
So
Or do you know
it
the
is a
triangle theory?
no. What is that?
Okay, have you? So there's Archbishop Fulton wrote this amazing book called Three to Get Married, where it talks about how like you have to exactly what you're saying, like how you have to have God in your life as the center, or like nothing else matters, like it's completely irrelevant. But the imagery that he uses is a triangle, and that both the husband and the wife are like someone's gonna Photoshop that and make the like the Illuminati, but who cares? Like imagine that you are over here, right, and your spouse is over here, right. The closer either of you get to God, the closer you get to each other, because
Okay.
when you get to God closer, since it's both at an angle, you both get closer to each other. And so it really comes down to exactly what you're saying, right? Both people need to make sure that they are pursuing God, not just pursuing each other. Because if you're pursuing each other without God in your life, it looks like you're going closer to each other, but you're missing a whole part that's essential to the triangle, right? That's why his whole book is called Three to Get Married. It's not just the husband and the wife, it's the husband, the wife, and God. But I would almost challenge you here. We need to not think that, hey, oh no, I'm not ready to get married yet, and that's not what's happening. No, no, you may be perfectly ready. Also, you will never be ready. Like, quite frankly, I know a lot about, the theology behind marriage, the psychology, that stuff. My wife's family has done a bunch of work in marriage prep in the Catholic Church. Once you get into the weeds, all of your plans go out the window, because the second something happens in reality and there's all these tangents of things happening around you, all the plans you have of we'll handle things this way completely goes out the window. It's gone. Good luck. You only really have a plan so you have something to change at that point. And so I would almost warn against that language of like, don't think, oh, I just need to be ready. I'm just not ready yet. Maybe you are ready, but somebody else isn't ready. Or maybe you're ready, but God has a lesson you need to learn yet. It's not that you're not ready. It's that you just need something else or more time, or you need to be in a different position in your life. That doesn't mean you are not intellectually or spiritually ready. It just means it's not the right timing yet. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I think a lot of us we're very, very, very impatient. I know I was very impatient. And I think that's where if you don't learn how to be patient, especially in God's timing, you are going to end up in the wrong relationships or with the wrong crowd. Like
Force
genuinely.
God's plan. Yep.
Yeah, and I've done it. Like I've been guilty, and I think that's just the humanness in everybody, where it's like we're the kind of people that want everything now, now, now. But it's like no, like we have to learn how to be patient, how to wait for that, and it can feel. And I think a really big part of that is because again, it's what society has been really throwing at us,
100%.
and it's so it makes me really sad because it's like all these people are having such a wrong perception of what marriage is supposed to look like, of what marriage is, because now it's very common that hey, go ahead, sleep around with as many people as you want without even first off without even getting married legally and within the church, or a lot of times it's like have as many babies as you want, you don't have to use anything like, and it's all that. And and I remember like as a child, like I would, as if when I was younger in middle school, people were really harsh because they would judge me because I was like, oh no, like I'm not into that. Like I'm saving myself up for marriage. And a lot of people be like, that's weird. Like why would you do that? But it's like because I'm like I can't imagine not giving myself to the person that God has set for me. Like imagine
Amen.
at the end of the day, imagine being able to go to your partner and be like, hey, like we waited for this moment. Like this is what happens when we actually waited for God's timing. Now, I do know that there are different stories where people they unfortunately before knowing Christ, that's where I think a lot of judgment also comes in because it's like, oh, you didn't wait for marriage, so why are you now wanting to wait for marriage?
Yeah,
Because
or it's like that church culture also that's like, but why aren't you married yet? Like you should be
yes,
married by 19, kids by 19 and a half. It's like we need to not try to I like what you said, it's all about patience, right? We should do things in the properly ordered way. And if we haven't, that's fine. Jump back on the path. God's GPS, not a roadmap. He'll work with whatever we give him. But we need to get rid of all of that sand that we were talking about at the beginning. It's not just things we've put on ourselves, it's things that other people have put on us. They're like, how dare you? What's wrong with you since you haven't gotten married yet? Why haven't you found a cute boy? Especially with certain ethnic groups in Catholicism. It's very much like, and you're nodding your head, they're like, yes, absolutely. I know.
yes.
No, trust me, I'm aware. There's that push of like, why not yet? Why not yet? Why not yet? Right? There's a great quote that I love because I was impatient for forever. I still am, but my impatience has kind of developed into other issues that I'm still trying to figure out. But hey, the best answer, Alex Hormozy said, patience is figuring out what to do in the meantime. We hate patience because we feel useless or we feel out of control. And so we just decide, well, if I don't know what to do, guess we're just going to start the race already. And it's like, but if you start early, you're getting disqualified. And obviously, God's not going to like kick you out of, your plan for salvation or your plan for a happy marriage just because you messed up once or twice. But at the same time, we shouldn't try to force. It all comes back to God's plan. We shouldn't try to force it. We shouldn't say, but I want this cute guy, so I'm just going to make it work. Or, oh, but I want this timing, so I'm just going to make this work. It's never going to work well. Timing is just as important for making the cake as the ingredients. You need both. Can't force anything if you don't have that.
Do you think that we see a lot of this today where women are now starting to pursue the men? What are your thoughts on that?
I got no
Women
problem with it.
pursuing men and then like because the thing is like I mean everybody has a lot of different perceptions about it. A lot of people are like, well, no, guys need to be like the chasers. They need to be the one pursuing us. But then there are other people that think like, no, women need to make that first move. So it's like a whole different thing.
There are a few aspects to this. I've given this a lot of thought because I'm a big psychology, sociology guy. Women have made it really hard for guys to chase, primarily because if a guy like talks to a woman in a bar, trust me, it should be so easy where a guy can just be like, hi, I'm cute, or hi, are you interested in being hit on? Right, something. But we're so scared of being, getting posted on Instagram of, oh, this dumb guy tried to hit on me, he's way under my league, right? That we get terrified to even ask. So, one, guys need to get over that. Two, women need to stop the a hostile environment that's created guys to feel like they can't do anything. So, like, it's a both and we should do. Now, I see no problem if a girl goes up to a cute guy and is like, hi, here's my number, right? You look cute. It'll make his life, he'll remember that for the rest of his life because men are so affection starved these days. But I don't, I think that there are unique roles and differences between men and women, but I don't think they have to be shoved into what we consider as traditional gender norms, right? So if a woman is the more dominant in the marriage, dominant energy in the marriage, and the man is more passive, so long as he is still able to properly lead his household, there's nothing wrong with that. Right? It's the same with a guy. It's like every Catholic guy doesn't have to be a Jim Bro, Aquinas reading, nothing like that. He doesn't have to. If that's the kind of guy you're into, all right, like go for it. Absolutely. Like that, if that's what you want to do, go for it, right? Nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't mean everyone has to fit the specific mold of the 6'2", blue eye, or 6'5" now, blue eyes, six-figure bank, right? That's not what we need. That's not the focus that needs to be on. I'm not saying like, hey, give short kings a chance or anything like that. I mean, please do. Everyone's made in the image and likeness of God, short or tall. I promise. God isn't so tall that people who are taller are close to him. Like, that's not how it works. But what we need to focus less on is, well, this is how it should be, and more on, well, this is the reality we're living within. How do we exist within it in a properly ordered way? That's it. So if a woman wants to go up to a guy in a bar, I'm not going to be like, you're being un-Catholic for what you're doing. No, who cares? Who cares? Go up and tell the guy he's cute. Got no problem with that. Now, should men still pursue? Absolutely. Should women still be receptive to that? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that men should shut themselves off and think it's bad if they receive a compliment for a woman or a woman comes up to them, or that they are like demasculated for that, or for women to say, I'm just going to sit here and wait, right? Everyone has ownership. Everyone is able to do things on their own. So do it. As long as you feel like it's okay, have a properly formed conscience, and it's not a sinful. I don't care. I really don't. I don't think there's any problem.
So what advice would you give to those who are in the dating stage with somebody and who are maybe considering marriage? Like, what are some things that you wish that somebody would have told you before you got married?
Just don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. It's really not that complicated. There's only a few conversations you need to have. Make sure you have your values aligned, your priorities aligned. Make sure you're attracted to one another, which if you're dating, like I assume you are to some degree. Make sure that you can at least agree on some of your priorities, right? And that you kind of generally want the same lifestyle out of life. Other than that, everything else is pretty much easy to figure out. The biggest issues are going to be values and priorities. If your priorities you can't at least collaborate on, if you both say, I have to be with my family for Easter, and both your families live super far away, you're going to have to figure out a way to collaborate that. If you both say Easter Day, Christmas Day, I have to be with my family, no ifs, ands, or buts, cool. Then if the other person also wants that, that's logistically not going to work unless you can buy locate. So, or then cloning or something like that, right? It's literally never going to work. So if that doesn't work, it's never going to work to begin with. Also, values, right? If your values aren't aligned, the rest of your life will not work. If one person says, and this isn't values meaning like, oh, well, I like traditional worship. I like, charismatic worship. That's not what I'm talking about. Way simpler, step back here. Is that person following God? Does that person pray every day? Is that person reading scripture? Is that person someone who's trying to get to heaven and someone who you can genuinely say, this person is going to help me get to heaven. I'm going to have children with this person, and I feel comfortable them being my partner and raising these children in the faith. Cool. But obviously, don't overthink that. Go on dates with them. Do you like their personality? Are they too loud for you? Do they have things that just don't attract you to them or don't connect you with them? Those things are equally important because they can be an indication of, hey, is this someone who you are simpatico with? Is this someone you can connect with? Is this someone you can collaborate with? Because you're going to be with this person for the rest of your life. So you don't get to say halfway through, no, they changed. I don't want it. Not going to happen. It's not how it works. You don't get to do that. Right? Even in the Catholic Church, the reasons for annulment are like, hey, these are things that not she changed, but she hid this from you to a degree that if you had known about that, you would not have continued dating. You would not have gotten into marriage. And so really, it's very simple. Do you guys align? Is it going to work? That's it. But also don't overthink it. Can you have fun with each other? Can you talk to each other? Right? Do you enjoy that person's company? If that works, then you should be fine.
And what do you say to those who, what do you say? Because I've seen this happen in my own life where, let's say they're not Catholic. They don't
Mhm.
grow up in like your partner is not a Catholic person. So what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe navigating, maybe being with a Protestant
Mhm.
sister or brother? Or what are some
Yeah.
warnings, or just how would you, like if somebody came up to you and was like, hey man, like I need help, I don't know how to navigate this.
Yeah. Very simple. Again, will they help you get to heaven? Are they willing to raise their children in the faith? Cool.
Okay.
That's
And
it.
then,
Like, stop overthinking it, Ari. Like, genuinely, don't overthink this. It's very simple. Are they a good holy person who desires that you get to heaven and are going to help raise your children to love God, specifically God in His fullness in the Catholic Church? Yes, Mazel. Wonderful.
but I also don't like the Bible. A lot of people bring this up, like they talk about how it being unequally unyoked. So wouldn't that also come to it in the fruition with this
Well, it
situation?
depends. What do you? How do you consider the word? How do you consider that term?
So I mean, I just thought either it's with an unbeliever or somebody who just doesn't hold the same, or at least in my case, somebody who doesn't hold the same faith that I do.
Hmm?
Like, let's say they
Yeah,
still believe in Jesus, but it's like, what exactly do they believe in? Because different denominations believe in different things. So that would be kind of like where I would be a little hesitant to be in a relationship with somebody that maybe is not in the same faith that I am.
yeah. If it's a well, and we're coming back to the question of values and priorities, right? If it's a value to you that you have someone who understands the nuances of the faith in its fullness, or someone who can go to adoration with you and says, "This is really Jesus Christ in front of me," then that's a value that you hold. But in terms of like, let's look at the etymology of the term equally yoked, right? A yoke is that which, you put on an ox to carry and pull something. You both need to be equally carrying what's going on in your life. You need to be with someone who's willing to pull alongside you. Now, part of that is recognizing what fields you're in and recognizing what are you even plowing to begin with. And that's the important aspect of this, right? It's not just do you share the same general beliefs as me? Do you share the same intellectual, system? It also comes down, and if you want to be with a person who is this kind of a thing, that's fine. It's the same way as saying I don't want to be with a charismatic or a traditional Catholic, right? I want to be with a normie sort of a person. That's fine. None of those are wrong. If that's how you are able to connect with God more, and you want a partner who's like that, absolutely. No problem with that. But you want to make sure that you're at least in the same field and you know what you're planting. That's the important part. That's what it talks about equally yoked. We don't need to say, oh, well, that means it will never work if you are a Protestant and they're a Catholic, or you're a Catholic and they're a Protestant. Or now, if they're atheists, that's probably not going to work. But if they're just they are following God in His faith, you're in the same fields, you know what you're trying to plant, you understand the seeds that you're looking to grow, then you can still be together. It's just going to have different unique circumstances. But also, when you're both Catholic, it could have different unique circumstances that you run into. It's just a different sort of a mindset and a different energy that you're going to bring and a different dynamic to your marriage.
And
Now,
how do
obviously,
you,
other people disagree and they'll just be like, no, no Catholic should ever marry a non Catholic. That's fine. If you don't want to, that's cool. Don't do it. Don't do it. If it's that important to you, don't do it. Please don't violate your conscience by doing that. But it's not inherently sinful or bad, and it's not inherently going to doom your marriage to failure just because you're like the Lutheran boy.
yeah, because okay, I've seen that happen a lot, like especially with a lot of the people that I talk to. Like it's one of the huge things, like, oh, I can never be with somebody who's from a different denomination or somebody who just doesn't believe in a God. But in my head, I'm thinking if you're like with some, if you are wanting to be with somebody that's an unbeliever, it's also another thing is maybe you're not meant to be with them romantically. A lot of times you're just meant to be there platonically. Like
Well
I've had that
said. Well
happen
said.
before. Because here's the thing. So my last relationship that I was in, I know that he was supposedly Catholic. He grew up Catholic, but he didn't take the faith seriously. He didn't even take his relationship with the Lord seriously. But one of the things I learned from that relationship was I was there to just plant that seed. Now, did we rush into things? Yes. I got really excited because I was like, first Catholic boy, absolutely, let's go. And I was over the moon. But it's also like the huge disappointment that really hits when you're like, okay, these different values, like we have much different perception of things. Like the way that he grew up, where it's like, oh, it's okay to live with your part
Mm.
partner before
Yeah.
marriage and all that stuff. And for me, that was like a huge thing. That was like a no-no. He wasn't active in prayer life.
Mm,
Also another red flag for me, which was I was like,
hmm
that's not good. But I did see that it was fruitful in a sort of way because I was able to plant certain seeds in him. And I remember that when we had the mutual agreement of breaking up, I know that one of the things he told me was, I'm very thankful because of you, I was actually able to come closer to the Lord. I'm actually able to pray a lot more. And it's just
That's
like,
great.
and it's just like, it's a beautiful thing because I'm just like, a lot of times if we're attracted to somebody, like at least I'm starting to realize, like, I'm just there to plant seeds. And if the Lord wants it to grow into something else, then he'll let it happen. But I think again, it comes down to being patient, and really asking the Lord, like, hey, how how do I need to perceive this relationship?
Mm,
Is this something
yeah.
that needs to be platonic, or is this something that needs to be romantic temporarily, or maybe further along into something very serious? And I think those were kind of like the best for me. I think that was one of the best relationships, just because I was really able to see the way that the Lord was working through this person.
That's
And I'm
awesome.
happy. And I think about it now, and I'm like, I mean, I still pray for him, but I'm not praying because I want him. I'm praying because, like, I hope that he continues to do what he's doing. I hope that he continues to be better, continue to thrive on that, and be like, you know what, Lord, help him be a blessing to other people. Help that faith keep growing. The seeds that
Amen.
were planted in that relationship. That's also another beautiful thing. And I think society, they would view that as a no. They would view that as like, you're crazy. Like, your ex is your ex, bye. Which I get it, but it's also like, you don't have to be mad at your ex. You don't have to stay and like, you don't have to wish them the worst. I think there's a way of, when those relationships kind of end, to bless them instead of judging them, or thinking about like, oh, because of this, they did this and this and this wrong. I
Yeah.
don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Anything you want to add
No,
to?
I love that story. Like the thing that keeps pulling on my mind is that like love is just desiring the good of the other. And sometimes that good is not, we almost are mystifying marriage as this awesome, super holy, powerful love, dopamine release. It's like, that's all great. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. But really, it's just two people who are saying, let's follow God's plan together. That's it. And it's saying, let's love. Also from Fulton Sheen's Three to Get Married, he says that love is mutual self-giving that ends in self-recovery. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. And that's really all that it is that if you are meant to love that person, you can still love them without being married to them. Exactly what you're saying. You can still desire the good of them. You can still want to give to them without, wanting to be with them forever. That's all good. That's all. There's nothing wrong with that. Marriage is a very specific and unique bond where you're saying, I want to be with you in a specific way, in a specific style, and to a specific degree, to the degree that I would choose you above all others. That's all it is. And you're like, wow, that's so intense though. So it is, but it's also simple. Both. A little bit of both there. We can totally say, I want God to show me where I want this person to be. Are they meant to be with me in this particular way? Right? But also we need to demystify it. Hey, I'm gonna figure this out. God's giving me a formed conscience that says I want somebody who prays consistently. I want someone who's this, and we can't say that like, oh no, but they're not there yet. They're never gonna be where you want them to be, right? Like no one is ever going to be that saint that you want to marry. If they are, awesome, but also like I'm a little worried because maybe you're not looking at the flaws of that person and looking at them honestly
Mhm.
as who they are, right? You can't be married to someone. You'll never find someone who. Let me rephrase this: if all you're looking for is someone who is a saint, who has zero sins, you're never gonna get married. Like ever. Not you, just like anyone. Like it's never gonna happen. You have to take them as they are and saying, I desire the good of you to a degree that I want to be united with you in a particular and specific way. That's all it is. And you can still say, I'm going through this process with a person. And a lot of times, this whole breakup feeling of like, I don't want to, oh my gosh, this sucks. This is terrible. It's because we built up these illusions. I want these things to happen with this person. And there's nothing wrong to even feel that way and say, man, that would have been cool. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it does work, good luck. Because it's still going to be rough and tumble and hard, even if it's the right person.
Yeah, and I think that, who do you personally, who do you feel is like the best example, at least in the Bible, let's go to a little bit more of a biblical standpoint. Who would
Yeah,
you
yeah.
say would be like the perfect marriage, or what would you say would be like a really good example for married couples, or maybe for
I mean,
those
the
who are
Holy
dating?
Family is almost like the best, right? I made this video a while ago talking about how we often forget about Joseph. And I'm not going to go into like a whole diatribe about like Jewish marital rights and stuff, which is like, I love talking about Mariology. But Joseph kind of was just like, hey, man, I'm doing my thing. And then the angel's like, hey, this is how this is going to be. And Joseph was like, okay, like if that's the deal, I guess that's the deal. We don't know a lot about Joseph's mindset. We don't know what he thought. His favorite quote in the Bible is saying nothing. Another one that I really like is Saint Teresa of Lisieux's parents, Zoe and Martine. They're saints now, and all three of their daughters were saints because they're all freaking. I think one is still blessed, one or two might still be blessed, but regardless, but they started off their marriage like completely Josephite for a year. No, could not consummate the marriage for a year, and it's like, whoa. It's almost that question of what are you willing to do to sanctify your marriage? What are you willing to do to be who you have to be, both Joseph and them? Like, we often have this weird idea of like, women, you have to do this for your man, and men, you have to do this for your woman. It's like, or you just have to be the best person you can for that person and desire not just holiness for yourself, but for someone else, right? Even Esther is a great example, right? Technically, she married, well, concubine, marriage, right? She was with the king to some degree, but she was able to do what God planned her while still inside of her marriage and being faithfully married. Ruth and Boaz are another great example, right? Boaz was kind of just like, you're pretty, cool, let's roll here, right? Obviously attracted by her virtue, not just her looks, but it's the same thing. They said, I'm going to choose you and we're going to go with it. Anyone who does that and recognizes that that's all that marriage is two people saying, we're going to unite and we're just going to roll, that's a very practical look at what it is. And granted, there's graces, there's sacrament, there's spirituality, there's all these other things. But really what it is you pick your person, just like Mary and Joseph. You pick your person, you say, I'm choosing you, I'm rejecting everyone else, let's roll.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple,
So,
but it's pretty
mm,
awesome because it's so much bigger than that. Because it's like, you're going to reject. Another quote from Fulton Sheen from his book Remade for Happiness is where he says that the true beauty of a man is when he says not to her, I choose you, but when he says to her, I reject everyone else. Like, that's the beauty of it. It's so cool.
and so I know I also have in my notes here, because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was actually looking to see like what kind of like biblical qualities of like what would make a really good husband, what would make a really good partner. And I'm not gonna lie, I was actually a little bit clocked in that sense because one of the things that it was also talking about was like we have to be careful about our language. Also controlling your tongue. Be with somebody who knows who can control their temper, control their tongue, and that was like the first thing that popped up to me, and I was like, okay. I get it, and I think that I had it written down that it says so yeah, so one of the first thing that it says is Proverbs 31, which everybody loves to quote for a woman, where it says the wife of noble character, highlighting strength, dignity, and wisdom. And then one of my favorite things is like an excellent wife who can find, she is far more precious than jewels. So it talks about like we need to be virtuous, and I would say that also goes for men as well.
Mhm.
Am I wrong to assume that?
Yeah, I mean, men aren't pearls. We're more like large rocks you can use to build something. A lot more utilitarian. But yeah, it's the same thing. Like everything really, and it feels almost oversimplifying it, but it's so hard and it's almost so romantic of like all you have to do is pursue virtue. And then when you get married, pursue virtue together. That's
And,
it.
and how would you describe what virtue is for those who
Yeah, I
maybe
mean,
have no clue?
yeah, I mean, a virtue, if we're making it really simple practical, a virtue is just a habit in which you are following God, right? It's where you're saying, because virtues are really just habits. Just like a vice is a bad habit, a virtue is a good habit. And so when you say, we talk about like a Proverbs 31 woman all the time, right? Oh, well, she would be like this and like this. Yeah, those are examples of virtues. Yeah, you shouldn't be quick to temper, right? Yeah, you shouldn't, to your point, like you should control your words. You make sure you're not lashing out, especially if someone who like rejected everyone else to choose you. You should be like, all right, cool, I'm gonna be nice to you a little bit sometimes at least, right? But you want someone who's following God at the end of the day, who is making a habit of following God, right? Like you mentioned, like I want someone who prays every single day. You want someone who has the virtue of prayer, of daily prayer. That's awesome. Because that is an indicator that that person is someone who not only has God as a priority, that they would carve out time to choose God, but that they want to have a relationship and connect with God, and that they can lead you in that relationship to further your relationship with God. That's all a virtue is it's a habit. And so if we want someone who is virtuous, it means that you know that they have these habits, or they are trying to have or grow in these habits of growing closer to God, or living their life in the way that God allows it, right? Removing sin from their life, following good practices, something like that. That's it. If you can do that, if you want to focus on someone, or you're looking for someone, are they a virtuous man? Are they a virtuous woman? If they are, it's usually an indication that it's a solid foundation.
And another one, there's one that a lot of people, especially now, like I've heard so many different explanations of this, where it talks about Ephesians, Ephesians chapter 5, verse 22 to 24. It's where it talks about how wives need to submit to their husbands. And I can see that a lot of people get really mad when you tell women, hey, you got to submit to them. So, like, what are your thoughts on that? Because society, like, they hate the idea of even having to submit under somebody, or maybe they just have the wrong perception of it. What do you think the issue is with
Yeah.
that one?
Don't be with a guy you're not comfortable submitting to some degree. Now, granted, we should clarify what the term submit means, right? It means you should follow their lead. It means you should be on the same team as them. It means you shouldn't be rebelling against them, right? You should be aligned with them. Be with someone who you're comfortable with them taking the lead a little bit and align. That's not just for women, men should also, right? That's why Christ talks about, women submit to your husbands, but also husbands love your wives like I love the church, sort of an energy, right? Men are not meant to, it's not meant to. We almost have this general idea of like submission means he's going to make all the plans and you don't even get a say. If he's not consulting you, that's not at least good leadership to some degree, because a good true leader is someone who takes into account and understands the feelings, thoughts, and desires of the person they are with, even if they are the ones making the final decision, right? A general is not just going to say, everyone submits to me. Yeah, they all have to submit to his final understanding and follow it out. But he's going to ask them, hey, what do you think about this? How are we aligned with this? What's the vibe of this, right? A dad who plans on Disneyland vacation not knowing, oh, hey, does a kid have an allergy? Which they should already know that. Or like, hey, when does they get off school? Which he should also already know that. But like checking and connecting with the person they are with is an important aspect of that. And you want to be with somebody who you are comfortable saying, you know what, I'm fine with them making the final decision, but I'm cool with me having input into it, right? And also, your decision shouldn't just be the man's decision, right? It should be you as a couple. It should be you united. So yes, there is this wives submit to your husbands, but you should always marry somebody who you would feel comfortable with them making the final decision on because you trust them. If you're with somebody who you're like, I don't know, he could be a little bit weird. Red flag, massive. It's like that one guy on Instagram who like runs around like waving the red flag. It's that level of no, probably shouldn't be with them if you're not comfortable. Not like, oh, I'll do whatever you say, master, bowing down sort of an energy, but like at least if you guys get to talk and then they say, okay, well, I think, yeah, let's do this then. And even if you say, well, yeah, I think we should, right? It's not you following him. It's not offering up less of yourself or removing your own autonomy as an individual. It's fine if the head of the household makes the thing, right? Makes the final decision. Nothing wrong with that. And again, it's when we talk about the church and the family as a domestic church, the man's taking over to some degree the role of the husband of Jesus, and the wife is taking to some degree the role of the church. However, that doesn't mean that the wife and the husband are losing things because of that. Just because someone is the head doesn't mean they're great. It's a lot of stressful to be the head of a household. Very stressful, right? Oh, well, a woman says, I want to do that. It's fine. I know families where the dude does the banking, and I know the families where the wife does the banking. Neither is wrong. Neither is saying, oh, you're not submitting enough, or oh, you're not a true head of the household. What it comes down to is making sure you are in alignment with your values and your goals, and that you are with a person who you're willing to say, hey, if you make a decision, I trust you on that one. That's the deeper energy of what that means.
'Cause, like, I've noticed that, like, I could speak for me personally, and a lot of women that I speak to, a lot of times I guess in a way I used to disagree with that, just because I was like, well, I don't know about this whole women submitting to men sort of thing. But but we're not realizing that it's like you gotta find the root of why is it that it's so hard for you to submit to a person? Why is it so hard for them to submit to each other? For me,
Well,
I
even what do you
realized,
consider it to be submit? What does submit mean to you?
yeah,
Because it could,
because
if you consider it in one way, it could be like, oh, girl, yes, I would also agree. That would be absolutely insane and crazy, right? Like, and in some degrees, a properly formed understanding of that makes sense.
and it did, and I think like one of the things that the Lord has brought up to me, it's like the reason you're having such a hard time submitting to male authority, or at least when I was younger, the reason was because of the fact that like the lack of love. Like, just depending. So for example, I didn't grow up with my biological dad. Doesn't mean he didn't love me, but he didn't show me in the way I guess I would have liked. I grew up with my
Hmm.
stepdad and my mom, who my stepdad has stepped up, but because of what I held against my biological dad, I didn't get to really appreciate what my stepdad was doing, the love that he was showing me, because my stepdad, he's the kind of person that would show me love. He shows it through his actions, which is a beautiful thing. But as a young girl, like depending on the culture that you grew up in, like you don't really see Hispanic dads talking softly to their daughters or sons or really encouraging them,
Oh,
and really like you don't get to see that because of the way that they also grew up as well. Something that they learned from generations back. And so for me, like now as a woman of God, a woman who's pursuing God the Lord and knows in her heart that, I do want to be married one day. I also know that it's a huge process. What we have to do is, okay, if you're realizing that it stems from your childhood, because the crazy thing is, I heard this in a group where it tells you if you if you have the way that your relationship works with your parents is it's gonna affect the way that you are in your future relationships. So, for
hmm.
example, I didn't have a good relationship with my dad. And if I would have continued that bad relationship with him, I never would be happy in any single relationship that I'm in with the male. Why? Because it all stems from him. Because of whatever I'm holding on to him, I'm just going to be seeing him
Hmm.
in my future relationship. Then it's the same thing with men. If you got mommy issues, that's going to drag on to when you're having a relationship with your wife, too.
Or
So,
women with their mothers, or guys with their husband, with their dads, because they're like, well, I'm in this role now. I guess this is how I do it because I have no other understanding of what it is, right? And that's why it's so important for. I'm not going into like two parenting households and stuff like that, but yeah, exactly right. And it comes back again. What is that sand that you've placed on this false truth, this false identity of self that you need to get rid of to understand what is really true? It all just comes back to that.
yeah, it really does. Like, I mean, my eyes were opened about my childhood, and I was like, okay, so I guess that's something I need to continue to work on. And it's a hard process, especially like
Oh
having to
yeah.
let go of all that, like having to go to the healing process. Like I always talk to people, and I'm like, I'm so thankful. Like I'm in therapy, I'm in counseling, and he's a Christian therapist whom I love deeply, and
Wonderful.
he's wonderful. He really, really is. And that's one of the things that we got into is like, why have I had such a hard time in my relationships with male figures in my life? And it stemmed because of that. And it's a great thing. So it's like, okay, I'm like, how can I? And then not only that, not only does it affect my relationship with people, but it also affects my relationship with the Lord, because you're also going to put him into that same standard too. If you don't have a
Yep.
good relationship with your dad, how do you expect to have a good relationship with the Lord? If you're not
Yep.
even willing to forgive your dad, maybe he wasn't there, maybe this, or even if they've passed away. Also, I think that really just having the Lord really touch you and be like, okay, help me to forgive him, because obviously I can't go to him and ask him for forgiveness because he's no longer here. There's a lot of situations where a lot of people like that's why a lot of I feel like that's why a lot of people are just very unsuccessful in relationships, and that's why I've been unsuccessful in relationships, because I still got to work on my relationship with my parents. I gotta break that box out of it, because my relationship with the Lord, it hasn't always been rainbows and sunshines, because it's like at one point, I know at one point during my quiet time with him, he literally told me, how can you tell me you love me when you can't even love the father that I gave you? And I'm just like, okay.
Fine. I get it. I get
You
it.
know when the Lord really clocks you and really starts to talk to you, and it's like,
Yep.
hey, like how dare you tell me this, when literally that's how I felt. And I was like, okay. I'm like, I hear
Yeah.
you.
It's one of those
Um,
crazy things. It all again. It all just comes back to pursuing virtue, realizing who God is, trying to follow and find somebody who's just like that, right? And it's very hard to find. It's very short. There's a shortage of, great men and women in the world. They're growing. There's more people who love God. There's more people who recognize that exact thing of, I don't like God in this way and that. But as long as they are willing to, and this is probably like the best advice, if they are willing to say, I'm growing, I'm trying, but I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong, you win. Like you win the lottery.
I agree
Because
with
then they're
that.
actually willing to grow. Because if they aren't willing, first step, what's the first step? It's recognize you have a problem in the first place. So if they're willing to even do that and they have a process of being open to that, then they're going to be somebody who can grow, and then you can grow with them, and then you win. Like huge win.
Because I feel like now, like women now, like they're very quick to blame the men and be like, it's all the men's faults and stuff. But really, when I talk to a lot of these women, I'm like, we're in the
You're
wrong
like,
too.
girl, actually.
Like I feel like we're, you know, I think we put a lot of expectations, and I think it's what you said earlier. It's like throw everything that you think you know, everything that you kind of just throw that away, throw all of those different things. And so, what would I guess my next question would be like, how would you get rid of all that? Like, let's say there's somebody that's listening and that's like struggling with that, has all the sand as per se. How do you lift that off? Like,
Mhm.
how do you know when you're like, okay, I lifted off all of that. I no longer have any of what I had before.
Yeah, two most important questions. I've been thinking about this, praying about this, writing about this. It's part of the book that I'm writing. Two questions you need to ask yourself. The first is the question that Jesus asks you: who do you say that I am? You need to understand who God is to you. Otherwise, you will have no idea who you are. Because if you are made in the image and likeness of God, yet you don't know the person, not just intellectually, but know personally the person you are made in the image and likeness of, nothing else matters. You will never be able to understand yourself. And after that, you have to ask, who do you say that you are? What are those false identities that you've put on yourself that other people have put onto you? What are those ideas about who you are, right? You might say, oh, I'm lazy. Oh, I'm slow. Oh, I'm dumb, right? No, you're not. Those are just traits you have. Stop giving yourself this identity of falseness that you hate. We're going back to this thing we talked about at the beginning, right? Like you have to look at yourself and say, I give that example as part of the series. Take a piece of paper, split it in half, right? I am, good things about yourself on one side, bad things about yourself on the other. Guess what? You are who you are. If there are things that are genuine sins or vices, work to get rid of them. If there are genuine good things in your life or things you could be doing better, try to be better at them. That's it. But before all of that, you need to remove you need to actually pick up the shovel and say, who am I? Who am I? Well, genuinely, at the end of the day, who am I inside? And who is God? And if you can answer both of those questions honestly and be not just be comfortable with them in like you have an answer that you like, but you have an answer that almost hits you a little too hard, and you're like, this is real, but also it kind of stings a little bit, but it is true, and I'm happy with it. But it's not the God that I want. It's the God that is truly there. It's the God that I need, not just the God that I'm comfortable with. And you are willing to take yourself and say, I'm giving up myself, not just the parts of me that I like to God, but everything I am, then you're able to actually give of yourself and follow his plan fully. Those are the two steps. If you can do those things, everything else will change in your life. And you need to stop thinking about it in terms of like dualism of like things are good or bad. Some things are just fine, right? Alcohol is fine. If you want to have a drink, if you want to have a beer, it's okay. Don't drink out of moderation, but also don't be like, no, anything is bad because it can lead me into. Take a breath. It's okay. None of this is. I mean, obviously, like sin will kill you, right? Like try to get to heaven. Be sure of your, whatever, but don't make sure that you're not getting so bogged down in the search that you're forgetting to live anyways, right? You're building this great boat, but if you never get in it and go on the journey, everything was wasted and pointless.
And I think that, I mean, it is true what you're saying. I think really just knowing who our identity is, and I think that's one of the things that everybody really struggles with nowadays is they're
I
trying to
struggle with it. Are you
find
kidding me? It's awful.
yeah, it is,
It
and it is.
sucks.
I know, and like I always tell people, I'm like, you have to be careful about how you think of yourself, how you perceive yourself, and what exactly you are telling yourself, because it's like the Bible literally states that like our tongue holds the power of life and death. And
Amen.
like one of the things that my therapist he told me, he's like, are you speaking life into yourself every day? Like, he's like, how can you speak life into yourself? Read the Bible. Read what the Lord says that you are. What does the
Mm-hmm.
Bible say that you are? The Bible says that you are loved, that you are this, that you are that. And it's like we need to learn to speak and Protestants are very good at this. I have noticed this, and that we as Catholics, we need to maybe kind of learn from them because in some occasions, yeah, because listen, they are very firm on that of like speaking life and death over a person, and they're very good about being like speak Bible verses into your life on a daily basis. Like my therapist, like he tells me that all the time. He literally gave me a list of like different things, and he's like, this is what the Bible says that we are, and he's like, speak that into your life. And every single time that somebody speaks something negative, do not come into an agreement with it. Like, don't come into agreement with that. Like, in your head, you can be like, no, like, I don't accept that. I don't take that because that's not what the Lord tells me.
Well, it's not just I would almost slightly push back against that. It's not about something being negative because we could perceive something as negative based off of what we are, but it's a question of is it a lie or not, right? The way that Christ talks about Satan in Scripture is that he's the father of lies. Anything and God is the fulfillment of truth because God, being truth and love, cannot be a lie. It would literally be impossible for God to have any essence of lie to him. And so it's not if somebody says something negative to you, it's if someone speaks a falsehood unto you, throw them away, right? If someone rejects you, if someone's saying, no, actually, you are bad. Actually, no, how would a boy ever like you because X, Y, Z, right? It's not that it is a negativity, it's that it's a falsehood, it's a lie. It's implying that because of some aesthetic aspect or ancillary identity of your being that they are believing about you that might not even be true, that you are now defining character that is changing the core of your being. Your defining characteristic is now that you are unlovable. It's not about negativity, it's about lies. Yeah, right? We have to remember we are good, but we are in a fallen state. And so it's okay to say, yes, I am good, I am holy, I am loved by God, I'm a Proverbs 31 woman through and through. But we also need to recognize those areas where we are not a Proverbs 31 woman through and through. We need to recognize those areas where we can grow. Not hating them, not hating ourselves, but recognizing, cool, this is the target. Let's focus on being better. Really
I,
simple.
yeah, well, yeah, I understand that because I didn't realize how much they're really into that. And I know you know, like what I'm talking about. Like people would think that that sounds crazy, but it's like it's true. And it's like, what better way to speak life into yourself than using the
Speak
one thing,
truth. Yep.
like the one thing that the church, that the Lord literally has given us, you know?
Hmm.
And it's really sad though because like in society, like we see a lot of that too. It's like you jump into relationships, but you don't even love yourself. You don't
Hmm.
even love the Lord. Like you don't even love anybody in your life, and yet you're still wanting to jump into relationships, and then you're wondering why is my relationships crashing and burning all of a sudden. There
Well, it's
is no
about
firm
need.
foundation. Yeah,
Yep, exactly. Why do you
there
need to
is
be
no
in a
firm
relationship?
foundation. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think I mean one of the things I had to do was break off that foundation. Ask the Lord, be like, break me down break by break if you need to, and
Hmm.
have me start over. And that's exactly what he's been doing. It's also a very dangerous prayer to pray because he will, everything that you think you knew, he'll be like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Everything that you
Sometimes he
grew
just
up
needs
in.
a little bit. Sometimes a little molding, and sometimes squishing down the vase entirely and starting back up again.
No, he literally had to tumble it down like a Jenga blocks. He literally just tumbled the entire
Just
thing.
grab
It's
his foot
like,
and just start squishing it. Yeah,
yeah,
100%. And
yeah,
sometimes that's what's needed.
yeah. And so, and it's just, and a lot, not a lot of people are ready for that. Not a lot of people are ready when you ask the Lord to really work on you. It's also like he's not going to let you just talk all pretty. He's also going to be like, hey, you got to work on that. You got to check yourself in that situation, you know.
Yeah,
And
we're
it's
never
just,
ready.
yeah, we
We're never.
we really are. Yeah, we are
All we can do
literally.
is say, all right, God, whatever you do, I'm going to try to cooperate best I can. Otherwise, that's all I can do. Like, that's all we can do. We're never ready for marriage. We're never ready for God to fix us or correct us or lead us to truth. All we can do is just say, look, man, I'm going to do my best. You do the rest. That sounded so corny. I am so sorry. That was awful.
I'm gonna clip that. Don't worry, I'm gonna clip that.
No, no. My evangelical's coming out. My false evangelical attitudes.
But it's just it's very interesting to have this conversation because not a lot of people are going to understand it. Not a lot of people are like, I know everybody tends to overthink things. I'm one of those people that have fallen into overthinking a lot about like relationships, singleness. Like right now I'm in that period where I'm single, but I'm like, okay, but you know what though? Like I used to not enjoy it, and now I enjoy it so much more because I'm like, okay, and like especially during this Lent period, which is about to be over soon this week, which I'm really excited.
Thank
Um,
goodness. This Lent has been awful. This
literally,
Lent has been so hard.
it has been hard for me. I don't know what you gave up, but I gave up secular music and I gave up my books that I love to read. And instead, I started to insert the word more. So instead of whenever I want to read a book, I'm picking up my Bible, whether it's on my phone or whether it's like my real. But
That's
man, it's hard.
so
I'm a
good.
huge book. I'm such a huge bookworm. But you know what though? With the secular music, that was something that was just like the Lord was like, you need to listen to different songs. Like
Yep,
the playlist,
detox,
delete
100%.
had me detox my entire playlist, by the way, which was terrible. I wanted to cry
Oh
the first one. I was
no.
like, Lord. But I was like, okay, I'm like, but I got this. And it has not been easy, but I'm actually very happy because I'm finding new different people that I listen to and I'm able to implement that into my daily life. And it's so beautiful just to really like reflect on this Lent. I think it's been something that has really been I feel like the Lord has been really working in me, and I've been seeing that it's been moving a lot of people to
Oh
becoming
yeah.
a different version of themselves. And people are like, I didn't even think I could do that. Like that's crazy. Like I didn't even think I could give this up, and now I kind of don't want to go back to how I was before because and I know you're going to agree with me. Right after Lent is over, people we just forget about God completely. Like we forget about all the things that we've done, all the work that we have done, and we kind of just throw it out the trash can. So
Mhm.
what would you recommend is to people now during Lent? You know, what would you recommend to them to continue on this journey that they're going through right now?
There is no continuation of Lent. Just do it all the time. Like you don't have to live your life waiting for the next New Year's resolution or the next Lent to give up and grow. Guess when the best time to start is? Yesterday. Guess when the second best time to start is? Right now. So don't worry about anything like that. Do the exact same thing. Figure out the style that works for you and just keep growing in virtue. That's it. Remove vice from your life. It's really that simple, guys. Does not need to wait until next Ash Wednesday. Doesn't need to wait until another great moment. There will never be a great moment to try to be better. Just start now. And if this is hard and your life is going to be hard, it means that starting at a good moment just means that you're going to quit the second life gets hard. So don't wait for it to be the perfect moment because it's never going to be the perfect moment for long. So just start now while it's hard, anyways.
Yeah,
You got me
I
started.
definitely agree with that. Yeah, it's rough. I didn't really used to take Lent that seriously before, but I think this year, because of how much my life has changed and how much our relationship with the Lord has improved, I really think that He's been just working tremendously into me, correcting all these different things, and it's hard sometimes because, again, I mean, I mentioned that I had that
Sometimes. It's hard all the time. Are you kidding me? I mean,
well,
come on.
okay, yeah, okay, correction, all the time, and I'm saying it's because like I mean, I told you, I mean, like I had a really huge problem with male authority, and so now it's like, okay, now that I'm on board with the Lord, it's like, let me correct you every single day of your life, everything that you're doing. I'm gonna tell you, hey, you should have reacted better in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's not easy, and I think it's also teaching people how to be more disciplined as well. And I would think that's also be a really beautiful thing because if you could be disciplined during Lent, I think in events like this, then imagine when you actually get to be with somebody. Like the amount
100%.
of discipline that you're gonna have, you know, the amount of patience that you're gonna have with that person. You know, I mean, I don't know how your relationship with your wife, but I'm assuming it's really good because, I mean, you both are practicing Catholics from what you're telling me, right?
Yeah.
Would you
I
say
mean,
that
it's. Go ahead.
with her? One of my questions is going to be like, how did you, like, was it easy for you guys to put Christ in the center of the marriage?
No, it's
Or
always hard.
did it take a process?
It
Like,
is
was it a
it is
process?
always hard for everyone. Getting married is incredibly stressful because it's like, hi, you have a roommate who shares a bed. Like it is not simple, guys. But you kind of have to just make the you're going through so much that like you have to figure out how do I make God in the center of my life, not just my personal life, because it's hard enough to be like, yeah, I'm gonna wake up every day and I'm gonna break open scripture and I'm gonna read it, right? Like that is hard enough as it is. But now you're like, no, I'm going to develop a relationship with another person with God in here. It will always be difficult. There's no preparation you can possibly do that'll have you ready for it other than actually doing it.
Hmm. I think if you're not, I always tell people, I think if you're not willing to make sacrifices, because I think marriage also requires that too,
Yes,
making sacrifices, certain things that you have to kind of, not changing everything, but changing some sort of things that you used to do. Like I know like a great example I think would be like my brother. I know that he actually like I love him so much and him and my sister-in-law they're in the process right now of actually getting married to the church. So hopefully in August,
wonderful.
you know, yeah, so and I'm really
God willing.
excited for them. Yeah, and so I'm really excited for that and I also know that like he really settled down when he met my sister-in-law. Like it was a huge thing even though they may not have done things the correct way per se, but I really think that even the relationship with the Lord has just been something that is really beautiful to see because like people I feel like people tend to judge people who go to church, you know, who go to church frequently and they're not really doing anything outside of church to like be an example for other people. But then I look at people like my brother. I'm like, my brother is just beginning, like in his faith, and so is my sister-in-law, and they are some of the sweetest, most hardworking people. But they're also the kind of people like they have they like I'm like they have Jesus in them, and I don't even think they realize that they have Jesus in them. I remember one time they almost cried because I told them like, you guys are some of the most selfless people that I ever know. Like whenever somebody needs help, they're the first people to jump on, and they will go and they will help them, or they will
I love
help
it.
them, or they will try to find it. And I'm just like, and you look at people who apparently have been going to church for like 1,000 years, and then yet we're not really doing anything. And it's like, how is it that these Catholics that are these people that are beginning their faith, they're doing a lot more than what people inside the church are doing.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if you
love.
noticed that.
No, I had oh man, I forget where it says in scripture, but seek justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. If you seek justice and you love mercy, but you're not willing to walk with God, what are you doing? You know, the Catechism says we must know, love, and serve God. If you know Him and you love Him, but you're not serving Him, what are you doing? Like, genuinely, what are you doing? And again, like, you can prepare, you can prep for marriage, etc. But all that matters truly is what happens when you show up. What happens when you actually do it. You'll never be ready. Like you said, you'll have to make consequences, you'll have to collaborate, you'll have to basically learn a whole new language. But if you're able to walk with it, if you're willing to say, I recognize these areas of my faults and failings, I recognize where I'm messing up, I recognize where I can be better, and you're willing to be better and you're striving to that, you win. There's literally no way you can lose.
I always tell people, I'm like, I don't care how long you've been going to church, but if you're not acting Christ-like outside of church, then what's the point? It's
Then
like,
you don't love God.
why? Yeah, I'm
I'll
like,
say it. I'll
then why
say
do
it.
you
You
do it?
don't love God. You don't know Him, nor do you love Him.
See, I don't say that because a lot of times it's my family, but yeah, but like
I
I
won't say it to
know,
their face, but it's like that's what I mean. Sometimes I actually have said it to people's face. It's like, hey, you claim you're reading these books about Scripture, and then how are you treating your neighbor? How are you going to church? What are you doing? It's meant to be a lifestyle, not a mindset.
yeah. So have okay, so I think one of my last questions would be like
Yes, yeah,
with marriage,
yes.
like are we required to have children? Because we see a lot of that. We see a lot of like the Catholic Church talks a lot about being fruitful, and also in the Bible it talks about like bearing fruits and really all that stuff. But it's like, is it normal for couples to be like, maybe I don't want kids? You
Hmm.
know, maybe
Yeah.
like they just have no desire.
So long as you are open to life, there's no issue. If you're saying I'm going to purposely prevent any option at which I will have children, that's a problem because then you're rejecting one of the aspects of your covenant of marriage. But if you're and there's also nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, I got two, I can't afford any more." I like genuinely if I have one more, like we will be on the street destitute. First off, God will provide, but also like there's nothing wrong with saying I'm going to do these things so long as you are also open to whatever God's plan is. That's it. And again, it comes back to God's plan. It's God's plan you have seven. It's God's plan you have seven. It's God's plan you have one, right? Like Abraham was given Isaac. That's it. And they
Literally
were
almost killed
old
them.
age. Yep. Sarah was old when she had Isaac. That doesn't mean they were bad because they had one child in old age, but we also need to recognize that God's plan will be done in his time, not in our time. We just need to be open to the participation of what his plan will be. That's it. It's pretty
Mm.
simple.
Yeah, because we see that a lot of people are starting to use birth control and all these different things to prevent from having
Yeah,
more
you're
kids.
not a better
Like I'm
Catholic
just
because you
tired.
had 9 kids, but you're also like you can't reject God saying, to your point, like you can't just say, "Hey God, I'm going to play God now and I'm just going to prevent anything from happening." That's
Yeah,
silly.
but yeah,
You're not God. Sorry. Sucks.
yeah. So, and what would you recommend for what would be like your biggest advice for married couples? Just maybe new couples that are starting out.
Never,
New,
never. The one thing that my wife and I talked about when we first got married: never compromise. Always collaborate. Compromise. Someone loses. Collaboration. You work together on a plan. It's you two against whatever the problem is. It's not one against the other. Well, the second you guys start arguing against each other is the second you lose. You need to be united in saying, I come from this perspective. Here's my concern about this. I come from this perspective. Here's my concern about this. Work together to find an answer. Your real enemy is the problem you're running into, not each other. So don't get mad at each other. You're all you got.
okay. All
And
right.
God.
So
And God. Obviously, and God.
yeah. All right. Thank you so much for being here on this episode. You are actually the first guest that I'm having on the
Yeah, but
podcast.
your
So
next guest is way better than me, so it's cool.
yeah, I will be having Alex soon, but yes. But honestly though, like I really wanted to bring on this because I remember when I had messaged you stuff and I was like, what would be a really good topic? And the Lord was just like, talk about marriage with him. I'm like, I know he's gonna
Amen.
be really excited about it.
I love talking about marriage. How'd you
So
guess?
yeah,
I love
it
being
was the
married. Big
Lord.
fan. Big fan.
Yes. And so where can people find you on social media for those who
Yeah,
are watching?
Instagram. DMs are always open if anyone wants to DM me. It's just my name, Connor McLaughlin. I think it's underscore. I'm sure Ari will pop that up on the screen somewhere or something like
Yeah,
that.
I will.
No, yeah, you got it. I'm on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X. I post a little bit on there, but it's pretty much it. If you're interested in youth ministry, torchbearerministries.com. If you're Catholic and you want to have better ministry in your parish for teens, otherwise, DM's always open. Come hang
All
out.
right.
We talk about this kind of stuff all the time. This is all I talk about.
I
So
have a feeling this is not going to be the last time that I'm going to have you on
we'll do it
because
again. We'll do it
I
again.
love, yes, I love having your insight on all of this. It's truly an honor to have you here, Connor. Seriously.
I got you.
And I've
Happy
been
to
watching
help.
your content. Yes, thank you so much. And then I'm
Of